I never thought I'd be the one looking down at Main Street from the mayor's office, sunlight glinting off the glass of my window, the hum of the city below filling the room like a heartbeat. My name is Olivia Carter, and people see the polished exterior, tailored blazer, confident posture, a city that thrives under my leadership. But they don't see the months, the years, the nights spent in doubt, staring at the ceiling, wondering if anyone would ever take me seriously, or if my city, my hometown, would ever matter. The phone buzzed against the oak desk, breaking the quiet. I glanced down. An unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then swiped. Olivia Carter? A voice sneered. You remember us? We used to joke about your little town. Thought it would never amount to anything. The irony made me smile, slow and steady, like the curling steam from my coffee cup. My fingers tapped the edge of the desk, feeling the smooth surface beneath my nails. Pride, a little hurt, and a quiet satisfaction swirled inside me. Yes, I remembered them. I remembered every smirk, every whispered insult, every dismissal. And now, now I held the story in my hands. The city that once seemed too small, too overlooked, too insignificant was now mine to lead, mine to protect, mine to elevate. And Olivia Carter, the girl they doubted, was the woman who would show them exactly how far resilience, vision, and unwavering belief could take someone. I was 17 when the town's laughter first cut me to the bone. Back then, I wasn't Olivia Carter, mayor of a thriving city. I was just Liv, with chipped nail polish, thrift store jeans, and a dream that seemed too big for the cracked sidewalks and faded storefronts of my hometown, Havenbrook, Ohio. It was at the annual summer festival, the one the locals treated as both a celebration and a competition of superiority. I had spent months preparing a small community project, an initiative to clean up the neglected park and turn it into a safe space for kids. I imagined bright flowers, painted benches, and laughter replacing the usual idle gossip. But when I stood there, pitching my idea to the town council, the room filled with chuckles and dismissive glances. Why bother? One of the councilmen said, shaking his head. This town's always been a dump. You'll never change that. The words hit me like a cold wind, freezing me mid-sentence. My hands shook, and a lump formed in my throat. My cheeks burned as I glanced at my parents in the back. My mother's lips pressed together, the faintest hint of disapproval, and my father avoided my gaze entirely. I wanted to scream, to demand they believe in me, but the words caught somewhere between fear and humiliation. Later, on the porch of my grandmother's small house, she handed me a faded leather journal, the edges soft with use. Liv, she said, don't let anyone else's vision of your life become your reality. You have your own story to write. Guard it, work for it, and never let their doubts become your chains. Her words sank deep. I held that journal like a talisman, letting each sentence of encouragement echo in my chest. That night, I stayed awake, sketching plans, making lists, imagining ways to leave Havenbrook behind without leaving myself behind. The world outside felt vast and intimidating, but something inside me ignited. I would prove, first to myself, then to everyone else, that my city mattered, and so did I. By morning, I had made a quiet decision. I would start walking my path alone if I had to. I would turn the mockery into motivation, and the town that dismissed me would one day see what their laughter had tried to bury. Leaving Havenbrook wasn't easy. I boarded the Greyhound bus with nothing but a suitcase, my grandmother's journal tucked under my arm, and a quiet determination burning inside me. The city lights of Cleveland welcomed me like a promise, chaotic, loud, but full of opportunity. I didn't have much, just a part-time job at a local coffee shop and nights spent devouring books on urban planning, politics, and leadership. But each small step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. It was during one of those late nights that I met Margaret Ellis, a seasoned urban developer with a reputation for transforming overlooked neighborhoods into thriving communities. I had nervously approached her after a small seminar she gave, hands clammy, voice trembling.
I want to change my town someday.
I want to help it grow. I stammered. She studied me for a long moment, then smiled. You have the spark, Liv. Most people your age are too scared to care. Don't waste it. Margaret became my mentor, my guide through a world that didn't make room for inexperienced women with bold ideas. She taught me to write proposals, navigate bureaucracy, and negotiate with people who assumed I wasn't capable. There were nights I cried over spreadsheets and city permits, wondering if I was in over my head. There were mornings I doubted every choice, every strategy, every plan. But Margaret reminded me, growth comes from persistence, not perfection. I started small, consulting for minor city projects, organizing cleanup drives, convincing local businesses to sponsor youth programs. Each success was tiny, but monumental. The first time a neighborhood thanked me for repainting a park, I felt a swell of pride I couldn't put into words. The first time a local newspaper ran a feature on my project, I nearly wept. These wins were private victories, shielded from the world and my family, who still assumed I was struggling somewhere in a cubicle or waiting tables. Along the way, I learned the subtle art of patience. Change doesn't announce itself in grand gestures. It creeps quietly through consistent effort, integrity, and vision. I celebrated small milestones privately, an unexpected donation, a volunteer who believed in my plan, or a local business owner finally taking my proposal seriously. Each victory added a brick to the foundation I was building, not just for myself, but for Havenbrook, the town that had once mocked me. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, I realized the power of secrecy. My family didn't need to know the extent of my success, the way I was quietly laying the groundwork to someday return. They assumed I was surviving. Little did they know I was thriving and learning how to turn their laughter into motivation for the city that had shaped me. The girl who once felt invisible was becoming the woman who could lead, and someday, she would. The day they returned to Havenbrook, I felt a strange mix of anticipation and quiet amusement. I knew who would show up. Former classmates who had whispered behind my back, council members who had dismissed me, even a few old neighbors who had laughed at my teenage dreams. They expected to see the same small, struggling girl they once ridiculed. They expected the town to be as forgotten and decayed as it had been years ago. I greeted them in my office at City Hall, a room I had meticulously designed over the past few years. The walls were adorned with artwork from local artists, each piece telling a story of renewal. Maps and blueprints of ongoing city projects covered one side of the room, and a floor-to-ceiling window framed the skyline, where cranes and construction spoke louder than any words about progress. My desk bore a few personal touches, a framed photo of my grandmother, her worn journal open on a stand, a small bronze statue of an eagle she had given me when I first left Havenbrook, a reminder of courage. They walked in, hesitantly at first, scanning the space as if trying to reconcile their memories with the reality before them. I let them take it in. I let the silence stretch, the tension thick and palpable. Their eyes widened at the polished floor, the gleam of new furniture, the buzz of a staff moving efficiently behind the scenes. I could feel the disbelief creeping into their expressions, the way some of them instinctively straightened, as if they were trying to regain composure in a room they no longer controlled. Finally, I spoke, my voice calm, confident, and deliberately measured. Welcome back to Havenbrook. I'm Olivia Carter, mayor of this city. The words landed like a thunderclap. I watched the disbelief ripple through the room. Open mouths, quick glances exchanged, and subtle shifts backward in their stance. Mayor, one former classmate murmured, almost inaudible, as if saying it aloud might shatter their own assumptions. Yes, I continued, letting the pause linger. And this city, the one you mocked, the one you thought would never matter, is thriving. Our unemployment rate has dropped by 20%. Our public schools are funded and renovated. New businesses are opening every month. And yes, I led all of it, quietly, patiently, because I believed in what this city could be, even when no one else did. Shock gave way to murmurs, then to silence. A councilman from my teenage years looked away, his throat tight, unable to meet my eyes. An old neighbor's lips trembled, caught between shame and awe. Even those who had dismissed me now seemed to grasp the magnitude of the transformation, not just of the city, but of the girl they had once underestimated. I stepped closer to the window, gesturing toward the skyline. This city isn't just a place on a map anymore. It's a testament to perseverance, to believing in possibilities that others can't even imagine. And I'm proud to lead it. The reactions were subtle but telling. Some slumped, embarrassed by their previous cynicism. Some whispered apologies. And some simply stared, a mix of awe and recognition of what happens when determination meets opportunity. I let the moment linger a heartbeat longer. I let the truth settle fully, letting my city's rise speak louder than any words. The girl they had mocked was gone. In her place stood a woman who had turned ridicule into fuel, doubt into strategy, and a once-overlooked city into her legacy. With the initial shock fading, I felt the subtle shift in the room. For the first time, I had the upper hand, not just because I was mayor, but because I held the keys to change. They had laughed, dismissed, and doubted me, and now I had the power to decide how, or if, they would remain part of this city's story. I took a slow breath, letting the authority settle into my chest. I don't hold grudges, I began, my tone firm but calm. But this city and its people deserve honesty, commitment, and growth. If any of you want to be part of its future, there are conditions. Eyes flicked nervously. I let the silence stretch, letting the weight of my words sink in. To start, I said, looking at a former classmate who had once mocked my ideas in front of the entire town council, you will volunteer for community projects for at least 3 months. You need to understand that success is built through action, not ridicule. The councilman who had dismissed me in my youth shifted uncomfortably. And you, he asked. I smiled, almost gently. I will support those willing to change. But only if they respect the work, respect the people, and abandon the toxic habits that held them and this town back. No shortcuts. No excuses. Havenbrook is not a place for half-hearted effort. I moved toward the window, gesturing to the city below. Everyone has a role. Artists, business owners, teachers, volunteers. You will contribute in a meaningful way. If you fail to meet these conditions, you'll watch from the sidelines. That's the price of dismissing potential. Some looked uncomfortable, others hesitant, but all were silent. I continued, letting each condition reflect a deeper lesson: integrity, accountability, empathy. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was demanding growth, for them and for the city. And for those of you who've forgotten how to dream, I said, my voice softening slightly, I'll mentor, guide, and support. But you must commit. No more cynicism, no more mockery. Learn to lift, not tear down. I paused, letting the weight of that statement hang in the air. The people who had once dismissed me were now confronted with choices: evolve, contribute, and become better versions of themselves, or remain irrelevant to the city they had scorned. There was no hesitation in my mind. I had walked this path alone for years, fueled by resilience, vision, and the belief that a city, and a woman, deserves the chance to rise beyond ridicule. Now, those who had doubted me were learning the same lesson. Empowerment comes with responsibility, and leadership is not about titles. It's about action, integrity, and the courage to embrace change. For the first time, I saw glimmers of understanding in their eyes. It wasn't enough that I had become mayor. They had to recognize the principles that had carried me here. They had to confront their own failures and commit to rebuilding, just as I had rebuilt both myself and this city. And in that quiet, tense room, the power shift was absolute. I was no longer the girl they had mocked. I was Olivia Carter, mayor, leader, and catalyst for change, and I would not let anyone undermine what we had created together. Months passed, and I watched the city and the people around me begin to change. The former doubters rolled up their sleeves, painting murals, mentoring youth, attending council meetings with genuine intent. They learned what I had always known: progress is earned through dedication, humility, and a willingness to evolve. Havenbrook was no longer the small, mocked town I had left behind. It was alive, vibrant, and proud. I walked through the renovated park one sunny afternoon, the scent of freshly cut grass mingling with blooming flowers. Children laughed on the swings I had once dreamed of building, their voices echoing like music I had longed to hear. Local shopkeepers waved, recognizing me not as a mayor, but as someone who had fought for their community, who had refused to let mockery define our destiny. I paused by the bench where my grandmother had sat when she gave me the journal, her voice still echoing in my mind. Guard it, work for it, and never let their doubts become your chains. I placed my hand on the worn leather cover I had brought from Cleveland, feeling its familiar comfort. Everything, the struggle, the nights of self-doubt, the triumphs no one saw, had led me here. And I realized something essential. It wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself that perseverance, integrity, and vision can transform both people and places. I had become a woman who could lead, nurture, and empower, without losing the warmth and humanity that had carried me through the darkest moments. Standing on the steps of City Hall that evening, I looked out at the skyline, the streetlights glowing softly, the hum of life around me. The journey had been long, sometimes painful, but worth every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. I had taken the mockery, the underestimation, and the laughter that had once hurt me, and I had forged it into strength. I smiled, thinking of my grandmother's words, the journal in my hand, and the city that had grown alongside me. Havenbrook had become more than just a place. It was a reflection of resilience, courage, and vision. And so was I. They mocked my city, but now it thrives. And I am its mayor.